Everyone, hope you're all doing well today. So, Riot released another dev blog, and as always, we're going to sit down and discuss it. So, the dev blog that we are talking about today is the update for Riot's behavioral systems, specifically dodges and AFK penalties. So, without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So this is their first update in addressing this year, and their next update, as they have stated, is going to be in mid-July. So we're going to take a look at what to expect over the next couple months, since Riot has been refining their behavioral system since in the last couple years there have been a lot of issues. So let's take a look at their goals first. As it's been a while since we last chatted, let's talk goals. Broadly speaking, behavioral systems have a few evergreen goals: reduce the frequency of disruptive behavior, mitigate harm caused by disruptive behavior, as well as shorter-term goals specific to individual problems. Specifically, reduce the frequency of repeat disruptive behaviors, use the newly launched reporting confidence system to increase confidence, hence the name of automated detection, which we're going to talk about this in a little bit. In addition to these behavioral goals, we're partnering with competitive in tackling problems endemic to matchmaking and competitive integrity. I'm assuming this has to do with high MMR, continue improving queue matchmaking quality without compromising queue time, and reduce champion select dodges across all MMRs. As a reminder, we're tackling these problems via iterative, solution-driven experiments aimed at measurable results. We want to get our ideas in front of you for testing to find which ones have potential for meaningful, immediate change. So, obviously, Voyboy, about a year and a half ago, started talking about the problems with people griefing or ghosting on stream, and then obviously dodging is something that exists in League, as well as just generally feeding and players trolling. Now, I will say that me personally, I have seen an improvement of my games over the last year and quality of games, people feeding way less. And the biggest problem seems to be either people rage quitting or their internet just gets cut out from under them, which is a natural thing that happens to all of us because you gotta love North American ISPs. Anyway, like I said, the biggest thing is probably just those things. Like I said, I do want to talk about the automated system real quick. So I wasn't aware of the fact that Riot was going to be implementing some kind of automated behavioral checking, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but let's get into taking a look at what this might be. So, in late 2020, early 21, we talked about plans for a reporting confidence solution that took into account quality of reports, players who were good at reporting disruptive behaviors versus people who just spam reports. Over time, this helps our systems refine the understanding of disruptive behavior that may be less blatant, as well as penalize players who are continually skirting our existing detection lines. We've rolled reporting confidence out for intentional feeding and have been seeing some promising results. This, 100%, love it. We've stated to confidently detect behaviors like jungle griefing, under the radar intent to lose or feeding behaviors, intentional lane taxing and griefing, and other behaviors that our automated system are looking at. Okay, so it gives three, jumping into this automated system, so it gives three examples here of unintentional griefing. Now, with any automated system, if you guys remember the YouTube algorithm BS of 2016 when they implemented their new algorithm, and then obviously it had to learn what was acceptable content to monetize, because people were getting demonetized left and right because of the fact that it was a new algorithm and it hadn't learned what was good and bad yet. So obviously there's going to be that that sort of downtime, or that sort of period of time where Riot's algorithm is going to have to refine what's going on. But to talk about this specifically, at least from my opinion, I am not a huge fan of this really at all, simply because in three instances here, okay, we have Syndra throwing her jungler's buff. So if the system is detecting that this particular behavior is happening, how is it going to determine if it's an int, or if it's BMing, or if Syndra's actually trying to steal the buff from like, let's say there's an invade here level 1, hypothetically speaking, right? So, like, if Syndra tries to pull the red buff, but it's on her side of the lane because she's trying to save it for her jungler when there's an invade, is the system going to ban her or see that as toxic? You know what I mean? With the wall blocking, plenty of accidents can happen with Anivia. Believe me, Anivia, Trundle Pillar, stuff that is player-made terrain. Accidents happen all the time with this stuff. And then with... now, this is, a little bit more obvious, I think. I mean, people can screw up TPs, but this is a more obvious one. But my whole thing with the automated system that I have to question is, okay, if there are behaviors that are being detected as toxic, what happens when those behaviors aren't being used in a toxic manner but are being used strategically? Like, are they lining up reports with what players are doing, or are they trying to get a system where they can detect behavior in-game before a report goes out? And that's like my biggest concern, is because, again, with this one, what if there's strategy being used versus like, what if there's good intentions? And then here, what if it's just accidents versus ints, or feeding or throwing your enemies off? And then here, probably less likely in this case, but like, what if it's just a bad TP, or you TP to a ward and there are 5 people there waiting in another unwarded bush? If the automated system is going to be looking for things like that, then it's almost like a referee that doesn't, like, if there are calls open to interpretations in sports, then I'm a little worried about those that coming to light with the automated system. So to close out this part of the article, since the system is still new, we're being very cautious with actioning on these behaviors, which is good. A lot of the stuff I just addressed. We're sure the system won't resolve in an unforeseen way and penalize innocent players en masse. It might feel like there are still people getting through the cracks right now, and for the time being, that's okay. Again, I am very cautious about this, and I do not like the fact that they're putting an automated detection system for in-game play. This is just the start of training our models to adapt to high-quality player reports. We're excited to continue monitoring results in the future and move forward with similar features for other prevalent disruptive behaviors. I'm leaning toward pessimistic with this, just because I understand that computer algorithms will learn, but at the same time, I'm not... This doesn't... The general report system is good, and I think they need to bring back the tribunal, is really what this boils down to. I don't like the fact that they're testing, at the very least, testing out an automated player behavioral system. So that's where I'm going to leave that. And then Q dodging is the other thing I want to talk about, because this one I actually have some interesting things to possibly talk about. So let's take a look at this. Almost here. Q dodging penalty escalation. We've mentioned that we're partnering with competition, I'm not sure, to address growing issues with dodging and match quality. The first approach outlined below is to immediately address the escalation of these behaviors via stronger penalties. The second is a long-term effort to address the underlying reasons for dodging in the first place. First, a single dodge doubles the overall time to game for 9 other players and creates a jarring experience. At higher levels of play, we even see some players say it's better to dodge a champ select with picks they don't like than it is to play the match out. Now, I will say this. There was a video, I don't think it was Nightblue, but there was an ex-pro that came back to League that LS was playing with, and when he was coaching him through, he was, I think it might have been the odd one, he was actually saying, this is what League is now. If you see that a person has a subpar win rate on a champion, it is actually better to dodge and lose 2 LP. Which, mathematically speaking, LS is right. Like, it's better to lose 2 LP and not sack any MMR than lose 15, 16, 17, 18 LP, as well as sack some of your MMR because that person picked a champion that they're subpar. There is strategy to dodging now, especially these days. This also gets into like some third-party program territories, but I'm going to cover that in a little bit here. Dodging should never be so optimal that players treat it like a tool in their toolkit. Just addressed it because, mathematically speaking, the strategy is there. It should be a last resort break in case of emergency switch. I mean, they did add in queue reports. So one takeaway from last time we discussed dodge penalties is that we want to avoid overly punishing players who had an unintentional disconnect in emergency or someone intentionally trying to ruin the game. In other words, the forgivable dodge cases. Now, I am also very thankful to Riot that they have kept connection type behaviors that have to do with your internet or things that are dodging separate from honor, simply because of these things. We're addressing that by adding a penalty tier but leaving the current tiers unchanged. Okay, so this is what this is. So first dodge in 24 hours, and this applies to all queues. So like if you dodge in a norms, the tier also applies to ranked. So first dodge in 24 hours, 6-minute lockout, 15 for ARAM, minus 3 LP in ranked. Second dodge, 24 hours, 30-minute, 10 LP, new tier. Third dodge in 24 hours, 12-hour lockout, 10 LP in ranked. So you don't lose any MMR if you dodge, but if you dodge a third time, you'll lose a total of 23 LP without losing MMR, and that's like 2 games worth of LP. Depending on how low your MMR is, though, that might be 1 game worth of LP. We expect the above changes to limit current abuse of the system while we work with our other Riot teams to really dig into other areas like autofill, off-roll, disparity concerns, perceived between team matches, a separate problem space from actual mismatches, hostage situations, and one-trick limitations at higher MMRs. Though there are no magic bullets for these in the short term, similar to last year, we think we can make iterative improvements across the year to drive meaningful impact on these underlying problems. Okay, so all of this is good, understandable stuff. I'm glad with the hostage situations they've added in Champ Select or in queue reporting. I feel as though that has added a ton of positive behavior to the pre-game game, so to speak, when it comes to Champ Select and seeing just seeing better quality behavior and getting the champ you want, getting better bans, getting people on the same page and less toxicity. One-trick limitations at higher MMR, obviously for people Diamond Plus who are playing like Renekton only top or TF only mid or just, again, one-tricks. So autofill, I haven't had too much of a problem with in solo queue. When I play, flex queue for practice in a more competitive setting, obviously, this happens a lot more. And the thing I want to talk about in terms of an interesting opinion here, perceived between team mismatches. So this might be able to be addressed in a very controversial manner, okay? So this would obviously ruin a lot of the economy outside of League of Legends, but what Riot could do is ban the use of third-party access to their servers, meaning that op.gg no longer exists, u.gg no longer exists, champion.gg no longer exists. The point is that while this is super controversial, one solution to this problem is that Riot could get rid of the ability in any way, shape, or form for you to be able to see your players, people on your team, their win rates, their current win streak, loss streak, basically outside stats and outside companies that allow you to see those stats. If you couldn't see them, then that would also help eliminate a lot of these issues. Because if you just go into a game blind and you know nothing about the players, period, then that's going to be a huge deterrent to dodging. Now, why is it controversial? Simply because if all those websites go out of business, then that obviously hurts the economy of League outside of the game itself. So again, just my opinion. I don't necessarily think they should be eliminated, but it certainly is an option that should be open for discussion, at least if they're trying to have people dodge less, because if you can't see your players' outside stats outside of looking at their account in the league client, then that is a possibility for eliminating these issues. So, and then almost here, the AFK penalty escalation, with the exception, my opinion, and personal experience, with the exception of random disconnects and internet cutting, I really haven't had an issue with this in the last 2 years since they started making punishments more impactful. So in addition to dodges, we've been assessing penalties for players repeatedly AFKing or leaving games. Again, we don't want to overly punish players who have rare disconnects out of their control. God bless you, Riot. But through monitoring, we've learned that repeat AFKs leaves are relatively rare and tied pretty directly to game-ruining behavior. Okay, so if they're basically overly punish players who have rare disconnects out of their control, but through monitoring, okay, so this hints at the fact that they are using an automated system for this. An automated system for detecting disconnects via internet versus in-game behavior is so much more trustworthy than an automated system that has to do with things that happen between champions in-game. Okay, so this I am cool with. We've learned that repeat AFKs leaves are relatively rare and tied pretty directly to game-ruining behavior, so we're opting to increase the lockout severity of our existing higher penalty tiers rather than add new ones. Okay, I'm actually okay with this because it seems as though they have a system that can detect unintentional AFKs and disconnects. When players AFK or leave games, they increase their penalty tier, and when they play games without AFK, we'll slowly decrease it back to 0. So today's tiers, first, second, third, 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and an auto loss. Revised tiers, 5, 30, and 14 day. That's really steep. Holy cow. So again, this seems as though it's less of a problem. So totally okay with this. Separately, there is an escalating LP penalty assessed for going AFK or leaving ranked games. This goes up by 1 tier when you AFK, leave, and goes down by 1 tier when you do not. This doesn't apply to promotion series or because of server issues, the game is declared to have not counted. So tier 1 to tier 5, escalating 2, 3, 5, 6, and -8 LP. This has been live for a few months, and we are active. Okay. So to round this off, in conclusion, the second half of 2021 and beyond, after this round of updates, here are the next areas we'll be looking at. In-game reporting options to allow players immediate response to bad behavior that further improve detection systems with time data indicating when the disruptions occurred in the course of the game. Further refinement of penalties to extreme offenders of all kinds, including an extension of the use of bans. Continued improvement on AFK, intentional feeding, and verbal abuse detection using our reporting confidence system. All right, so to recap. So, with the goals, overall, pretty good. With the automated system for detecting behavior specifically, I'm erring on the side of pessimism. I'm a bit skeptical about this, and I am my gut tells me this is not a good change for them to try. And I think that for this, they should bring back the tribunal. Okay. Again, I don't like an automated system for plays happening. Rather, bring back the tribunal and rely on ports for this. Q dodging. Again, I've expressed my controversial possibility for this if they want to cut down the amount of Q dodging. However, I will acknowledge the reality of the fact that there is a strategy component to dodging, at least in the ranked queues. Unless there's a disconnect, dodging an ARAM I think is a little BS, as well as normal games. You know, if it's a non-competitive game, suck it up. And then the AFK, feel great about this one. Obviously, they're very good at detecting when accidents and disconnects happen. You know, the internet gets cut out from under your feet. So this I'm totally fine with, as well as the LP loss, as well as the mitigation when things aren't counted. And to round out the conclusion, obviously all these things overall are good. Again, just not a huge fan of the automated system. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you've made it this far, as always, thank you very much for watching. And as always, we will see each other again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.